It's time to refuel yourself this afternoon. Grab a freshly brewed bean-to-cup crazy good coffee. Build your best blend and customize with our wide variety of creamers and toppings. Get what you need to get back on track today. Wherever you're headed in Atlanta, Racetrack's here for whatever gets you going. And you'll be here before you know it. We're less than 10 miles away. You'll find us on your way. Racetrack. Whatever gets you going.
Overwhelmed by mess in your pickup bed? Upgrade with the decked drawer system. It's completely redesigned. Accommodate more gear in larger drawers. Extend effortlessly and keep your equipment clean and dry. Secure your loads with integrated D-ring tie-downs. Optimize your truck bed space. Proudly made in the USA. Lockable and compatible with any truck from the past 20 plus years. Simple online ordering and easy installation. Visit deck.com/iHeart for free shipping. Get decked. Truck bed storage, toolboxes, and accessories.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it because you're dead.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Prime.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I am John Schmeelk, joined by Matthew Citak. The phone number for you, we'll be taking your calls at 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. We have our first of two joint practices with the Detroit Lions here from the Quest Diagnostics Training Center. And the way we talked about it after practice, Matt, feisty and physical. I'm sure fans have seen the various Twitter videos that have been posted up online by the reporters that were in attendance. Some scuffles, some brouhahas, some pushing and shoving. But no worse for wear. The players that we spoke to after practice, obviously, they like the competitiveness. They like standing up for yourself. They like fighting, not the proverbial fighting, but they don't like the actual fighting. They want to keep that to a minimum, clean that up. That takes away from trying to make practice as smooth and efficient and keeping guys healthy as possible. But otherwise, a very spirited day.
Yeah, spirited was the word I was going to use to describe what we saw on the field, especially during those team drills. But yeah, you're exactly right. And Brian Burns mentioned this when he spoke to the media after practice. He said that, you get in those kind of scuffles and it takes some energy out of you, and then you kind of don't realize, oh, wait, I have 3 more plays that I have to now go out there and do, and I've got less energy now because of the scuffle. So you definitely want to, have your own guys' backs, your teammates' backs, but at the same time, the coaches definitely want to keep those to a minimum, or have none of them at all. There was, this we saw it on both practice fields. The Giants' offense versus the Lions' defense, and the Lions' offense versus the Giants' defense. There were some little scuffles on both sides, including one in which Daniel Jones found himself in the middle.
A little shoving there.
Yeah, which, you definitely don't want to see your quarterback who's coming off of a torn ACL in the middle of these little scuffles. But at the same time, and, we've seen the replay of what happened, Greg Van Roten was on the field. Lions guys were kind of pushing him down into the ground when the play was already over. And it was nice to see DJ kind of get in there and push the Lions guy off of his teammate and help him up.
And that's what Brian Burns said to us at the podium after practice, where, you like the quarterback sticking up for his teammates. Daniel's a fighter. You love to see that from the quarterback back, but maybe don't get in the middle of things there when you're wearing the red jersey.
Yeah, he said let your offensive lineman handle that, which we did see a lot of those guys jump right into it too. Jermaine Illuminor especially. It was good to see him, I guess bring some juice to the offensive line.
He definitely wasn't going to take any, from Lions defenders, I think would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, and honestly, it was almost all of the starting offensive linemen. Andrew Thomas was in there, in that same scuffle with DJ getting pushed around. So, look, as we said, you don't want to see fights during these practices. They're just practice, but at the same time, you like seeing the guys have their teammates' backs and, not standing down just because the Lions have this reputation of being all gritty and we're gonna bite your kneecaps, and it's good to see the Giants stand up for themselves as well.
Yeah, no question about it. And I thought it was it was the secondary and the receivers that I think kind of had the most back and forth on the other field. It was the Giants secondary and the Lions wide receivers. Multiple incidents over there. So, again, you don't want to see that. You don't prefer to see that happening, but you did like to see how the Giants fought. And look, we talked about this after the joint practice last year, Matt. Were you at Detroit with us last year or no?
I was,
You are. The first day was ugly. It wasn't good, especially in the team portions of practice specifically. They did all right in the one-on-one O-line, D-line stuff on that day, but the team stuff was ugly where the Lions really dominated on both sides. And that was not the case in this practice. I thought it wasn't a dominant one by the Giants, but it wasn't a dominant one by the Lions either. I thought it was back and forth. I thought the Giants made some plays. I thought the Lions made some plays. And I'm pretty happy and satisfied walking off that practice field with how the Giants did.
Yeah, I would say overall this was a pretty even practice, which when you consider the aspirations and the expectations that the Lions have going into this season, that's a pretty good day for the Giants. On both sides of the ball, both teams made their plays. Daniel Jones had a couple of deep shots, one to Malik Neighbors on the sideline, one to Jalen Hyatt, both of which, wasn't quite touchdown, but the Giants would have had the ball first and goal inside the 5-yard line. And the Lions, the Lions offense made plays too. Jamison Williams, there was one play. It seemed just like a miscommunication, a busted coverage, because he was so wide open down the field that clearly there was something wrong with the communication between the DBs there. But yeah, overall, both teams had their moments. It was not, as you said, it was not a dominant practice from one team or the other. Excited to see what tomorrow brings. I mean, I don't know if it could be quite as physical as today's. At least I hope not. But.
Yeah, I was worried. Sometimes when you see a lot of these things go on, the coaches get together and they're like, all right, we'll just practice separately. I have not gotten that sense since practice talking to people that's something that's going to happen. You hope the weather holds up tomorrow, which also could be a challenge because there's not enough room indoors to really have a true joint practice because we need side-by-side fields. So the teams can kind of go against each other. So we'll see what the weather is tomorrow. Some more details in practice. That's kind of the overarching look at it for me. Just so fans understand, basically what goes on here, guys, is that you have adjacent fields. On one field, it's the Giants offense against the Lions defense. On the adjacent field, it's the Lions offense against the Giants defense. So we try to keep an eye on both things, but you can't see everything. You're going to miss stuff. I'm going to try to rewatch practice this afternoon, time permitting. And, when I come back, I think I'm back on Wednesday. We'll kind of go through some more details of what happened the last 2 days. But let's start with the Giants offense, man. And you mentioned a couple big plays down the field. The Giants were not shy about getting the ball down the field in this practice.
Nope.
Now, I thought they could have done a little bit of a better job blocking some Lions blitzes early in team period. Now, it's important to know you're not scouting the Lions. You don't know what type of blitzes they run. So they're going to surprise you with stuff. So that type of stuff's not that surprising. I thought there were too many guys that got close to Daniel Jones. In fact, one actually knocked the ball out of his hands on a pass, which is a big no-no when you got the quarterback wearing the red jersey. But they were throwing the ball down the field. Neighbors had it wasn't one of his wide open running past the guys things. It was his unbelievable ball skills in the air things where he basically mossed a guy on the right sideline. Jalen Hyatt found himself open deep on another play. Daniel Bellinger got deep on a little outright on the left sideline. I thought, we've kind of talked about how DJ moving around has actually looked 100% back from the knee, but it seemed like he was still trying to find his timing and rhythm in the passing game. I feel like this was one of his better practices throwing the ball, to be honest with you. I thought he was letting it go. I thought he had good velocity. I thought he was hitting guys in stride and on time. I was pretty happy with how the passing offense looked, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Daniel's accuracy, I thought, was on full display today.
I saw one high ball on the left sideline. I think that was it.
Yeah, and look, it wasn't an absolute perfect practice. He didn't go, 20 for 20, but the plays where the ball did end up hitting the field, some of them were just good coverage by the Lions. Like, you got to, tip your hat when the other team has good coverage, which happened on a few occasions. For the most part, though, he was putting the ball exactly where you want him to put the ball. It didn't matter the type of route, whether it was a short route, intermediate, deep down the field. His accuracy, I feel like since the start of training camp, we're a week and a half in, almost 2 weeks in, I feel like it's just gotten better and better. And, obviously, as we've spoken about at length, as Coach Dable has spoken about, Daniel didn't do any team drills during the spring, during the off-season program. It was all 7-on-7s. Training camp was the first time he was doing 11-on-11s, facing an actual pressure, having to work the pocket. And considering it had been 8 months since his torn ACL surgery, you'd expect there to be some rust. You don't think he's going to come in on day one and, be hitting every single pass on every single play. You expect a little bit of a little bit of a bumpy road just to start till he gets like his feet underneath him again. And I really think as we've gotten a little bit further into camp, the accuracy especially has just improved, and it's like very easy to see.
Yeah, 100% with you. And look, when you look at the Lions and how they're structured, if they have a weakness to me, it's their secondary. They're not rolling out a bunch of all-pro corners and stuff like that. So I wanted to see the Giants passing game have success today and tomorrow. I wanted to see the Giants wide receivers get open, and for me, they met that expectation. Up front, I thought they held their own pretty well on one-on-ones, watching that on my side of the field. You guys were watching 7-on-7 during that time. I thought Andrew Thomas, I did not see him get beat during one-on-ones, O-line, D-line. Hutchinson and Illuminor went back and forth a couple times. They had a good back and forth. Stinney had a couple of losses that I wasn't thrilled with. Van Roten was okay. But for the most part, the Lions had some wins up front, Matt, but I thought the Giants' offensive line, in drills that favor the defense, again, it wasn't perfect, but I thought they did a representable job against a front that has some pretty talented players on it.
Yeah, I mean, from where I was standing during practice, you stood, pretty much at the line of scrimmage or right behind
it, yeah.
The line of scrimmage.
I was watching with O'Hara and Booth. I was trying to get some offensive line tidbits from those guys.
Those are some good people to watch the offensive line with.
It was pretty good.
But I was on the opposite end, so I was sort of in the end zone, trying to be able to see what's been going on both fields, which was a little tough. Had to keep my head on a swivel, but in terms of the protection, I did notice at least a handful of plays during team drills where Jermaine Illuminor really held his own against Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah, he was solid.
Again, I didn't see the one-on-one drills, so I don't know what went on there, but at least during team drills, that was the first time Illuminor was facing, a top-tier talent outside of his own teammates, Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. And the few plays that I noticed, the two of them going at each other, he really seemed like he held his own, which obviously, if Jermaine Illuminor, I guess plays like he did last year in Las Vegas, if he can bring that to the Giants this year, that would be a significant boost to the offensive line as a whole. So what I noticed during 7-on-7s, first of all, you just touched on this. Malik Neighbors, oh my God. I mean, I feel like every day he's made some plays where just like, holy cow, but seeing him actually do it against another team for the first time, you see that it's not, it's not just Malik Neighbors taking advantage of the Giants' like young secondary. Like, he's going to be a problem for every defense that they face this year. Like, his ability to create separation no matter what route he's running is unbelievable. And there was one play where DJ hit him on a quick slant, and he just took off. And I think I turned to you and Dan Salamone, and I literally said, that looked like the plays when Eli used to just throw the quick slant to Odell, and Odell would just take off 70 yards down the field for a touchdown. Like, we've seen it before, but again, seeing him go against Terry and Arnold, who, he is a rookie, but he is a first-round pick, was picked, 10 slots after Neighbors this year.
Some people thought he was the best corner in the draft.
Yeah, a lot of people had him as the highest-ranked corner, so to see him do that and just win, somewhat consistently against a guy with some high pedigree. I mean, we've seen him have some nice battles with Deonte Banks, but again, just seeing him do it against a guy on another team was great to see, and has me really encouraged about what he's going to be able to do this year. You mentioned the Jalen Hyatt deep ball. DJ also hit Darius Slayton about 20-25 yards down the field.
That was left sideline, right? I did see that one.
That was the left sideline.
That's right.
And then Dennis Houston, again, I feel like another guy that, I feel like we've talked about a good amount considering where he's been playing with the second, sometimes third team offense, but he had another good catch, athletic catch, climbed the ladder, stretched out and made the catch. And on defense, there was one play in particular that stood out, and that was Bobby Okereke dropping that back into coverage. It was like the tight end, I believe. Sam Laporta did not practice today, so I'm not sure which Lions tight end it was, but was doing a cross route, and Bobby dropped back in coverage, read Jared Goff perfectly, jumped up, intercepted it, and started running back the other way. I don't know if necessarily would have been a pick six, but it was a very impressive looking interception.
Yeah, and again, it's that zone drop stuff from the linebackers we've seen in Bowen's system that has kind of worked so well here. And I thought the Giants' offense, I thought, played a little bit better than the defense. I thought the Giants' defensive front did a pretty nice job watching the one-on-ones. Dexter Lawrence put Frank Ragnow, who's an all-pro center, on rails right back to the quarterback like he always does. Brian Burns, beginning of team drills and in one-on-ones, I thought he was very difficult to block. Kayvon Thibodeau had some pressure on a number of plays too. You saw Ryder Anderson get back there once or twice. I thought the Giants' front was pretty effective, Matt, to be honest with you. I saw a couple too many gaps in the run game, maybe that I wasn't a huge fan of, but I was pretty happy with the front. The issue is that you had some issues on defense over the top, where the Lions were able to make some big plays down the field, which, again, I think heading into this, you knew what the Giants' strengths and weaknesses are, and one of their perceived weaknesses is a very inexperienced secondary. We saw them get beat over the top to Jameson Williams a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, there was one play in particular towards the beginning of, was it? I believe it was 7-on-7.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, towards the beginning of that period where, again, it was blown coverage. There was no one within 15, 20 yards of him. It's not like, he just outran a defender and a guy was trying to catch up to him. Like, there was just no one there. So clearly it was just some sort of miscommunication. And then kind of similarly, at the end of practice during team drills when they were in the red zone, there was Jameson Williams again had a play where there was just no one remotely close to him. So I'm assuming, again, it was some sort of miscommunication. Which, yeah, you don't love to see that, but this is the time of year where you sort of work out those kinks so it doesn't happen once you take the field for week one.
And when you have young guys in the secondary, those plays are going to happen. They just are, yeah. And they'll have to look. They're going to have to work through that and figure it out, folks. Like early in the year, and again, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here or anything, but look, there's a good chance that first couple weeks against a passing attack like the Vikings, there's going to be some plays down the field against the secondary if you don't get a lot of pressure on Sam Darnold. Like it's just going to happen. It takes some time. Even going back to 2007, first year under Steve Spagnuolo, first couple games, the defense was an absolute disaster. It was a sieve. They gave up 80 points in the first two games. It was a mess, but they figured it out. So, especially with young guys in a defense in the secondary, that's a lot of zone, which means there's a lot of passing guys off, a lot of communication. You might have some plays like that early in the year, and I would say that again about any team that has a new defensive coordinator. So it's something worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the saying goes that the first month of the season is somewhat of like a crapshoot. It really takes 4 games into the year before you every team start really playing as themselves really, and what you expect them to play like. So the fact that we're less than 2 weeks into training camp and it's still over a month away from week one, yeah, there are going to be some bumps in the road, so to speak. I mean, anywhere on the rosters, but especially with a young secondary, it's sort of expected. But I did notice as well, similar to what my earlier point about Malik Neighbors finally having success against a different opponent, the same goes for Brian Burns. Holy cow. Brian Burns, who's been dominant all of training camp, again today found himself in the backfield on numerous occasions. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, when the people he's going up against on Detroit, we're talking about Penei Sewell, who is one of the best tackles in the league.
Top 5.
And Taylor Decker, who is another very solid, proven veteran tackle. And Burns was, I mean, I'm not going to say having his way with them all of practice, but he was, even on plays where Sewell was able to keep him somewhat away from the quarterback, Burns was just pushing Sewell further and further back, and that pocket was just collapsing around Jared Goff, because Kayvon Thibodeau also did the same thing coming from the other side. That was one thing that really stood out to me, that even on the plays that they weren't able to fully get to Goff, they were able to push the line back enough where Goff felt that pocket collapsing and had to pretty much just throw the ball away on a few occasions. So that was very great to see. And the other defensive lineman that I thought had a solid day, who really has been solid the last 2 weeks, is Nacho.
No, yeah, he was good today. You're right. Good call.
And, I think I said last week, it's easy to tell when Nacho makes a good play because he makes sure everyone knows on the field.
Oh, yeah.
But today, even putting that aside, it was easy to see that he was having himself a very good day. And Detroit, I mentioned the 2 tackles, but the interior of their line is very good as well. I mean, Frank Ragnow is one of the best centers probably in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's with Jonah Jackson gone. I'm not sure who they're starting.
Like Glasgow was one of their offensive linemen, right? One of their guards.
I don't know who the other one
is.
is.
Zeitler.
But
Zeitler left practice early in practice.
Off
yes.
early in practice. But yeah, Nacho just had himself another good day. I had him with at least one pressure, likely sack.
Mm-hmm.
And the other play that really stood out was Isaiah Simmons. We've spoken a lot about how Shane Bowen envisions this role for him as a early down nickel. There was one play where he was matched up against Amon-Ra St. Brown. And for as talented as Isaiah Simmons is, that's not a matchup that I typically think
No, that's a bad matchup.
Simmons would have a lot of success about. But he had great coverage, jumped the route, and batted the ball down on
I didn't see that one,
on
really.
a short crossing route that you think would be an easy completion. It wouldn't have been a big one, but an easy completion for 5 to 8 yards. And Isaiah got his hand in there and knocked the ball away. And, it seems like the Giants want to have Simmons play this early down nickel. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the top slot receivers. He's one of the best receivers in the league, but especially out of the slot. So to see him have success like that against that caliber of player, that was just very good to see. Very, very refreshing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I think they did a nice job today. I'm pretty happy with how it goes. I'm looking forward to rewatching some of those reps later on this afternoon. But again, I think they held their own, and going up against a team that was a couple plays away from going to the Super Bowl last year, I think you have to be pretty happy with how the Giants performed.
Speaking of Amon-Ra, real quick.
Yes.
I didn't finish the show receiver, but I heard that
I have to get through it. I haven't done it yet.
A big takeaway from that was that Amon-Ra, I guess on the field is not the nicest guy to opponents. And that was on full display today because him and Drew Phillips, which
he plays with a chip on his shoulder.
He certainly does. I mean, he's spoken about it in interviews at length multiple times over the last few years.
Well, he's the guy that has memorized all the receivers that got picked in front of him.
Yeah. But on the flip side, Drew Phillips was, matched up against Amon-Ra a lot today. And, Drew Phillips spoke to the media last week and said, once I step onto the field, I am not afraid to go up against anyone. I will compete and, go all the way, full throttle, no matter who I'm matched up against. And he did just that today against Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was not afraid to get up in Amon-Ra's face. I feel like the two of them had a couple of scuffles, or what led to some of those bigger scuffles was the two of them kind of going at each other, which, again, we don't have to keep repeating. You don't love to see a lot of the scuffles, but I did like to see that a rookie quarterback was not afraid to get up in the face of one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Overwhelmed by mess in your pickup bed? Upgrade with the decked drawer system. It's completely redesigned. Accommodate more gear in larger drawers. Extend effortlessly and keep your equipment clean and dry. Secure your loads with integrated D-ring tie downs. Optimize your truck bed space. Proudly made in the USA. Lockable and compatible with any truck from the past 20 plus years. Simple online ordering and easy installation. Visit decked.com/iHeart for free shipping. Get decked. Truck bed storage, toolboxes, and accessories.
201-939-4513. We'll take your calls, but don't forget, first, you can run or walk with Giants legends. The Giants Foundation will host a 5K race and kids run presented by Quest on Saturday, September 7th at 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt. After the race, stay for a post-race festival with appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at giants.com/5K. And also, guys, go subscribe to the John Settle podcast. Great pod dropped last Friday. That's up there right now. It's our interview with the producers of Hard Knocks, Emily Leitner and Paul Camarata. Just kind of go inside the series, how they did it, some of the challenges. I throw some fan conspiracy theories at them as well. Giants Huddle Podcast, Giants app, giants.com/podcast, or just search for Giants Huddle on your favorite podcast platform. We got JJ After Dark, John Jastrzemski coming up later on today, talking a little Lions joint practices and more heading into that Giants' first preseason game. So a lot of good stuff. And tomorrow we have our next 10 in the Giants 100 countdown. That'll hit the Huddle podcast feed at some point on Tuesday. And then we're going to have, I think, Sean O'Hara on Wednesday morning will go up, breaking down everything that happened at joint practices for the 2 days. He's been there. He's been watching. So it'll be good to get Sean's take. We haven't talked to him a while on the Giants Huddle podcast. All right, 201-939-4513. Unless you have anything else you want to hit before we go.
Just because you mentioned Sean, I noticed we had a good amount of Giants alumni.
I was going to
today.
bring that up. We had Tom Coughlin.
That was my favorite to see, Coach Coughlin out here. There was one point where...
Were you here with Tom at all?
No, unfortunately not.
You got here with McAdoo or Shermer?
I got here for the second year of Shermer. Was my first
second year
year
of Shermer, okay.
2019. But there was one moment where I think it seemed like every employee kind of noticed where Coach was kind of standing off to the sideline, but his hands on his hips.
Fists on his hips, holding his papers, and just looking with that little, like, you could tell he was scowling from behind, even watching. I should take a picture of it. It's pretty funny. I'll put it up on social media. But yeah, it was like all he was missing was his whistle. All he was missing was his whistle, and he could tell like it was killing him not to yell at the guys, "Stay off the ground." Because that was what he always used to yell during the practice. Stay up, because guys were hitting the ground actually a lot today, more than you would like.
Yeah.
But it was really good seeing him out there.
Yeah, good to see him. Michael Strahan was here.
He was.
Victor Cruz, Phil Simms, Chris Canty,
Sean O'Hara, Kevin Booth,
John Casillas,
Howard Cross.
So Carl Banks.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these are kind of
Joe Morris. That's a good one. Yeah.
Some of these guys, are regulars here, but seeing all of them together on the sideline, it was very cool to see.
There were a lot of people on the sideline.
The sideline overall was very crowded today.
It made it difficult to see both fields because there were so many people.
Yes, but the alumni that was here, it was good to see them on the sideline.
Absolutely. Great to see all of them. All right, 201-939-4513. Let's go to Hugo in New Jersey. Hugo, you're up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Hey, guys. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hey, your commentary just now reminded me of a question I wanted to ask. Are the Giants going to do Ring of Honor induction this year? I mean, I guess given the
I think they're just focusing on the 100, Hugo. I don't think I've heard of any Ring of Honor inductees this year. I could be wrong. I don't think I've heard that happening.
I have not either. Doesn't mean that they're
necessarily. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. But I haven't heard about it.
Well, I would have thought that for the 100th anniversary, they would have added a few more players from that list.
Who do you want to add, Hugo? Who do you want to add?
I'm going to talk about a particular player. I just saw the 50, the 10 players ranked from 50 to 60 or 51 to 60, and saw the interview and was glad to see Mark Collins as part of the interview. Now, my only objection is I think he's too low on the list. He was ranked 56. He's the best corner I have ever seen. And Jerry Rice himself said that Mark Collins was his toughest matchup. I would have had him at least, I think, 10 higher. But, it's very hard to do. The things you guys are doing this year is just outstanding. It's very, very hard to do all these lists.
Do you think? And again, I was a little young for Mark Collins, so I was when his last year with the Giants. Let me double check this. Was what, like 91, something like that?
91.
Yeah, so I was only 10 in his last year, so I don't have a great recollection. So let me ask you, Hugo, do you think Mark Collins at his best was better than Jason Sehorn at his best? Because I know Collins had a longer career, and he didn't have the injury that Sehorn did.
Well, here's the thing. Collins was a two-time Super Bowl champion, and he was a cornerstone of the secondary. And the reason I say that is because the Giants of that era, especially the 86 team, had a white-hot pass rush. But if you looked at the other people who played in that secondary, Terry Kennard was a good player, but he was hurt that year, and his career kind of went downhill. So, yeah, I would say, and let's be honest, Super Bowl 25, I know OJ got MVP, but the real MVP of that game was the Giants secondary. Mark Collins has that iconic shot where he's lifting the receiver Reed from the Bills right into the air with one of those shots he laid on secondary. So all those. Look, I think you guys have done a great job, but I would have thought Mark Collins would have been a bit higher. But that's just my opinion.
Fair enough.
Just keep in mind. There was the independent panel that voted on that.
Oh, I know how it works. So Lions are in town, and I certainly want the Giants to catch lightning in a bottle, but this season. But if they don't, I have a feeling I might be rooting for the Lions in December and January. And part of the reason is once a Giant, always a Giant. And Dan Campbell was a tight end for the Giants, drafted by the Giants.
Well, and I would say too, Hugo, as a Giants fan, no one wants to see the Cowboys, Eagles, or Niners win any game. So I think the Lions are an easy team to root for. I'm with you on that.
There is that too. I have a question for you, and maybe you can't even talk about this, but one of the reporters said that Evan Neal did not rehab in the facility during the off season. I don't know if you could even comment on that.
I thought he was here, to be honest with you.
I certainly saw him here.
I saw him here all the time in the off season, Hugo, to be honest with you.
Okay. So then that's a false report, because they were suggesting that maybe he hasn't made enough progress because he wasn't in the facility. But if that's not true, then that reporter has it wrong. Can I make a couple comments about Hard Knocks now that it's over? Just my high level impression.
Of course.
So some of the good. Look, Joe Shane is a very likable guy. He's got a very endearing personality. I thought the show showed that he brought in some good talent into the front office. Chris Rossetti, Brandon Brown in particular. Now, I was a little surprised that Dennis Hickey didn't have a bigger role in the last show, the draft show.
I actually talked to Dennis about it. He could not have been happier that he was not featured more.
Okay.
Trust me, he is heavily involved. Trust me.
Okay. And then the one thing I have to say is, maybe this is the way it was presented, that the Giants seem to draft too much, with too much emphasis on need. And I'm seeing that as more and more a trend around the league. Now, Neighbors was, in my mind, the best player at a position of need, but I'm talking about specifically the second and third round. But,
the problem is that, Hugo, they can't show them talk about all these guys that they decided not to draft. You know what I mean? We have no idea. Like they said, all right, well, if the two SEC corners aren't there, McKinstry and Lassiter, all right, we'll draft Newman. Well, they could have had three other conversations where, well, if this pass rusher is there, we'll draft him. If this defensive tackle is there, they would draft him. And they might just not have had room in the show to put all those different conversations in there. You know what I mean?
I figure that played into it. So, okay, fair enough. But look, I mean, all these things are good, but at the end of the day, as we've talked about, Joe Shane really needs to start hitting on some of these draft picks. And by the way, I'm a big fan of his, because in his first three drafts, at least in the first round, he took exactly the player I want.
Yeah, me too. That's the thing, Hugo. So if some of these guys don't end up working out, I'm gonna have a hard time killing the guy. Dude, I told people 2 years ago, I think Neal and Thibodeau were two of my top three players in that class, along with Hutchinson. I couldn't get upset about it. They were my, I think, second and third players after Hutchinson on the board that year.
You know what impressed me, though, most about it? He runs a very collaborative process while balancing leadership within that process. Because it's not just groupthink, right? Because too many chefs in the kitchen can ruin the stew kind of thing. So he just, to me, strikes the right balance. But at the end of the day, these draft picks have to hit. I mean, eventually he's going to be judged on that. Okay, I've taken up enough of your time with history and all this other stuff. So
thank you.
I'll move on. Thank you.
Hey, look, it's up. And Matt, we're not breaking any news here. For a team to be successful, you have to hit on your draft picks. I mean, that's just,
sure.
They have to. You need guys playing well and contributing and being good starters that are on rookie contracts. That's what all teams need if they want to be able to be successful in the NFL.
Definitely. I think, sometime in the last few weeks, I think it was with you, maybe Paul, but talked about, the big reason why teams like the Lions and the Rams have taken these big jumps in the last year is because they've hit, and not only have they hit on the draft picks, but they hit on guys after the first round. Their day 2 and day 3 picks. That's a very big way, an easy way for your team to jump from, a good roster to a great roster, is having those later picks develop into starters and, even high level starters. So yeah, it would be great to see some of the Giants' recent draft picks, even after the first-round picks, develop and become guys that, at the very least, can be reliable starters. And I feel like we're kind of starting to see it. I mean, I'm thinking of day 3 picks from Joe's first draft, someone like Dane Belton.
Micah McFadden.
Well, yeah, Micah McFadden last year turned into a reliable starter. He could take a big jump this year.
Marcus McKeithen would be another guy that was in that mix, right?
But Dane Belton, he could find himself in a big role on the defense this year. So,
Bellinger, that was day 3 pick, right? He was 4th rounder. Bellinger?
Yeah, Bellinger and Belton. I believe those are the 2 picks that were within
correct.
2 picks from each other.
Was Flott in that draft? Or
he was 3rd rounder
Flott
that
was a
year.
3rd
Correct.
rounder. Yeah, another guy that could be looking at a big role this year. So, yeah, I mean, look, if the Giants want to take that next step, it's going to require some of those guys taking their personal next steps in their careers. And if they can do that, then the sky is the ceiling for this Giants team.
And for a lot of the guys in that draft class, quite frankly, they all had so many injury issues. A lot of them, it's the equivalent of their second year.
Yeah.
The only guy from that class, the only 2 guys from that class that did not have season-ending injuries that first year, I think McFadden eventually did. I think he actually did have a season-ending injury towards the end of his rookie year. But Thibodeau's the only guy that lasted. Everyone else got hurt. Wandale Robinson, Cordell Flott, Micah McFadden, Dane Belton. He was out almost the whole year. McKeithen, Azudu. Go down the list. It was an injury fest.
Yeah.
So a lot of those guys missed valuable time, too, with those injuries. Make sure you go and subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast on Giants.com. And while you're there, you can take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2024 season. You get all sorts of exclusive member benefits. Go check it out. Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And single game tickets, I believe, are up there and available now as well as we celebrate the Giants' 100th season. Ryan in Illinois. He's up next. Ryan, what's up?
Hey, guys. I've got a couple would you rathers and then a comment on Hard Knocks if I could.
Sure.
So my first one is on Brian Burns, and I think a good thing about him is that he doesn't miss much time with injury. But would you rather him stay at that level, like where he is pass rush win rate, 8 to 12 sacks a year, but he doesn't miss a game? Or would you rather him go to like maybe Max Crosby level, Trey Hendrickson level, but then maybe he gets a little bit more of an injury bug? So would you rather take the higher ceiling or the injury clean slate?
I'll take the higher ceiling, assuming we're not talking like season-ending injury. We're talking about missing 2 or 3 games, something like that. I will take missing 2 or 3 games if he becomes like a 15-sack guy.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Okay. Nice. My second one is, would you rather throw out some questionable growing pain kind of secondary players who are ascending, or would you rather get a higher ceiling veteran that is not going to bear fruit long term for this season?
If you think that these young guys have the ability to develop into something that can really be a starter for you down the road, I would like to see the young guys play.
Same, especially because some of those bigger name veteran guys, especially the ones that are still out there on the market right now, are going to cost more than just the minimum. And I would rather save that cap space and have a little more cap space roll over to next year, where you would think that the Giants would be a little bit closer to really contending. I'd rather save that amount of money for next year.
And this is not like a all in win or else, Super Bowl or bust type of year. So I think you want to play the young guys. And I do think they have a couple of vets in here that, maybe not the quality of like a Stephon Gilmore that's still available in the free agent market, but guys like Trey Herndon, guys like David Long, took the words right out of my mouth, and then a guy like Nick McLeod even, who's been in the league. He's a young vet, but he's still a vet, and he's been in the league a long time and played a bunch of different positions. In fact, Brian Burns was raving about Nick McLeod today during his post press conference, and he was asked about Nick by name, but he was very happy with the type of veteran presence and versatility that he brings to the defense.
Nice. My last one is, would you rather have, on offense, Malik go absolutely insane, and then everybody else is pretty quiet relatively, or would you rather have a really balanced room where maybe Malik is only at about 1,000 yards, well, that's still great, but, everybody else has 600-700 yards, or would you rather have him go for 1,500, and then Jalen is like at maybe 450-500?
I'll take the balanced room. because I know Malik Neighbors has that upside. So if you need him to be that guy in any given game, you can go there. But if the other guys show that they can be weapons too, Matt, and beat one-on-one coverage, I think that eventually makes Neighbors an even better player because it's tougher to double team him.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I definitely would rather the well-balanced attack this year because even if Malik Neighbors, doesn't go nuclear as a rookie, based on what I've seen since he stepped into this building, it's not going to be long down the road before he does go nuclear. So even if it's next year, 2 years down the road, like Malik Neighbors, if he stays healthy, his ceiling is so high that I would happily take, 1,000 yards this year, but also have, Wandell at 600 to 700, Jalen Hyatt in that same area, Slayton. Like, I would much rather see that bounce attack because I know Malik Neighbors is fully capable of going nuclear, even if it's a year from now.
Nice. And then real quick, just a comment on I feel like there has been a lot made, and this is obviously outside noise, so it doesn't really matter, but a lot of people saying that because of the way that Hard Knocks cut the last episode, that Drew Phillips was a need pick instead of a quality of player pick. And I want to echo that while Hard Knocks is not going to make a false narrative, they're going to use the information presented to create a narrative that is good. So it's not necessarily like lying or anything like that. So like I go back to the Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt was mentioned as a name. We don't even know how much the Giants actually considered bringing him in. It's just, if you say, hey, are you interested in this player? They can say, yeah, of course we are. We're looking at all options. Then HBO's like, okay, fantastic. We're going to put Robert Hunt on the screen, as like a way to drive, the story in general. So I think people just need to be really, pull back from, like, I'm sure they talked about every single player for at least an hour or two, and you genuinely can't even get close to, ascertaining most of these conversations because they can really just pull a tiny little nuance off of one conversation on one day.
Yeah, Ryan,
I would kind of run with the story.
Yeah, I would go back. If you haven't had a chance, you listen to the huddle I did with the two producers from Hard Knocks last Friday. We talk about this exact thing, and my exact question was, guys, they probably had questions about 300, 400, 500 players over the course of your recording at Hard Knocks. What was your process in terms of how you filed that down to where you can tell a cohesive story? And they go, look, well, the thing that makes this Hard Knocks different, and again, I suggest everyone go to the John Soto podcast, check this out. It was a really good conversation, like 45 minutes. It was a good conversation. And what makes this different is that before you even start editing the first episode, you know how the story ends. So they're just they're recording everything, and then when they learn who the Giants sign in free agency and who they draft, well, they're going to base what they put in to the story on what they did. So, they're going through those day two scenarios with the owners and John Mara, and I'm not sure if Steve Tisch was in there for the day two ones or not, but he was going through all the scenarios with Dable and everyone else that was in that room. And they mention a couple different scenarios. There could have been 3, 4, 5, 6 other scenarios they presented as possibilities. And remember, they didn't just say that Andrew Phillips, well, he's the next corner, so that's who we'll take. No, it was, well, Andrew Phillips is the last corner that we have rated high enough to be considered to select in this area. And if they were really picking just based on need, and I do agree, Ryan, I think a lot of teams do pick based on need around the league. They do that 100%. They would have picked him in the second round. If they would have said, well, we have to draft a corner, corner's our biggest need, we have to draft a corner, well, then they would have just drafted Andrew Phillips in the second round and not waited until the third round to pick him. So I think it shows that value is important there because they said it on camera. Our biggest need is corner. Yet they bypassed a corner in the second round that they picked in the third round. Where if they were really saying, well, we're picking a corner no matter what, well, guess what? Drew Phillips would have been there picking round 2. Now, that's not how you should draft. You got to pick the guy that's the best player on your board that also fits a relative need for you. And I think that's how they ended up with Newman in round 2 and then Phillips in round 3.
Overwhelmed by mess in your pickup bed? Upgrade with the decked drawer system. It's completely redesigned. Accommodate more gear in larger drawers. Extend effortlessly and keep your equipment clean and dry. Secure your loads with integrated D-ring tie-downs. Optimize your truck bed space. Proudly made in the USA. Lockable and compatible with any truck from the past 20 plus years. Simple online ordering and easy installation. Visit decked.com/iHeart for free shipping. Get decked. Truck bed storage, toolboxes, and accessories.
That makes sense, right?
And I want to say that I'm actually in the defense of Joe Shane here, not so much.
Oh, I got you.
It's more for the people who are saying that this is my response. I think his process showed to be pretty dang good, actually.
Yeah, the way
so I'm applauding him.
No, Ryan, I'm with you, and I appreciate the call, man. The way look, guys, fan however you want. I love all of you guys. You love the team. That's great, but the amount of trying to like analyze facial expressions of people as somebody else in the room says something to determine, like, the nitpicking here on that has just been off the charts. As someone that actually, I feel I'm able to see things, and I'm pretty good at that. Like, some of the stuff that people are trying to pick out and make mountains out of molehills here is kind of crazy.
Does it surprise you?
No, it doesn't. Doesn't.
Just love the big sigh. Fan however you want.
No, look. I'm never gonna tell anybody how to root for their team because that's their right thing, and root for their team however they want. But like, don't go out of. There's enough. Here's the thing. I'm not telling any secrets here. For the last 10 years, this team hasn't been very good. They've made the playoffs twice. All right, it's been bad. There's enough actual things that have gone wrong for you to talk about if you want to be angry about something. Don't try to manufacture bad things that aren't really there just so you can get even angrier. There are plenty of actual bad things that you can be angry about, and I get that. Don't try to make up other bad things out of whole cloth. You know what I mean? Like, just because the results haven't been good doesn't mean that there are not some things that you can hang your hat on that maybe you think the future is going to be better. That's
for sure. I mean,
that's all I'm saying.
You can pick things from last year, which obviously no one is going to come out and say that last year was a great season, but
no, it was a bad year.
But that doesn't mean there aren't positives to come out of the season that you can build on and bring into 2024, where you obviously hope that the team takes a big step from where it was last year.
Yeah, but it's almost the equivalent of like, all right, all the things that weren't around. Somebody's like, well, here's what I didn't like about Dexter Lawrence last year. It's like, come on, guys. I haven't seen much of that. I'm just giving that kind of as like an overall. Like, I've got a lot of complaints about Kayvon Thibodeau's year last year. The guy had 12 sacks, 11 and a half, 10 and a half, what was he, 11 and a half sacks?
11 and a half.
I mean, come on. Like, you can take the good, all right? And you can analyze it, you can be fair about it, but you can actually enjoy some of the good if you so choose. Brandon in New Jersey. He's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Brandon, what's going on?
How's it going, you guys?
We're good, man.
What's up?
I have a way too early bold prediction on Camp Cuts, but
all right, put it in the doc, Pearson. Pearson, you ready? Pearson, you ready to put it in the doc? All right, good. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, cool. I have some preliminary questions though, because I do get all my information from your recaps, the handful of clips that come out, and then what happened last year. So I do have some preliminary questions.
All right,
number one,
lay it on us. What do you got?
How many total players do you think the team keeps between running back and tight end?
I think tight end, I would say probably 3 tight ends.
I'm going to guess 7. I think 4 tight ends and 3 running backs.
4 tight ends.
Just because they don't have...
Ooh.
Do you know why I think it's going to be 4 tight ends, honestly? Who's the one tight end that's going to take 70% of the snaps?
Maybe Theo Johnson? Maybe not at the first.
Too early. Like, that's the thing. Like, here's how I look at it, right? You got... Theo has to be on the roster. He's your 4th-round pick, right?
Yeah.
Cager's your receiving tight end. He's on the roster.
Well, I guess part of that depends, I guess, because he hasn't been practicing. No one knows the severity of
assuming
the injury.
Cager's health.
Okay.
All right? Theo and Cage are assuming his health. But you don't know. Maybe the hamstring lasts, and you don't know how that's going to go, right? Or whatever. I'm not sure if whatever his leg injury is. I think that's what it was. I don't remember if somebody said something about that. You got those 2 guys. You have to have Bellinger on the roster, obviously, as kind of a 2-way tight end that I think is probably going to be the guy with the ones most of the time. And then I feel like you need a blocking tight end. I think whether it's Manhurts or Stoll. So what are you leaving off there? Are you leaving off your blocking tight end? Or are you leaving off your receiving tight end? Because I think Bellinger is on. And I think Theo Johnson's on. So what are you taking off?
I think you're definitely right that there will be a blocking tight end on the roster, for sure. You don't bring in Chris Manhertz and Jack Stoll
to cut them both.
I'm
with you.
And Daniel Bellinger's even been kind of more of a blocker overall his first 2 seasons. I think it'll be 3 tight ends though. I think Theo Johnson will make the team, of course. I think Cager will also make the team because he, at this point, is probably the best receiving tight end on the team. But that third tight end spot is where I'm starting to question what might happen. I think it'll be one of, maybe Manhertz, Stoll, or Bellinger, not 2 of them.
Yeah, see, I think they're going to want, if they want to go, I guess they could use an extra offensive lineman as one of the tight ends. They could go that route. My gut tells me, just because they don't have that established starter that's going to play all the snaps, they're going to want to be able to move people in and out a lot. So I would guess, my guess would be 4 tight ends and 3. How many running backs do you think they're keeping? I think 3. I don't see how you could keep 4 on the 53.
I think right now I'd lean 3, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's a 4, if there ends up being 4.
So if I asked you said most likely combine the 2, how many total? I think 7.
6 or 7.
Well, I'm not those 6 or 7.
Fine,
Give me a number.
I'll agree with you on 7 then.
7. You go 7. Okay.
7. One of those 2 positions, I think,
they'll get the 4.
Could have 4.
Fair enough. And that probably means, by the way, you can only keep. You're not keeping. I know some people have talked about 7 wideouts. That means only 5 or 6 wideouts, and that also could be how many quarterbacks to keep too. Do you keep 3 quarterbacks in the final 53? That could cut down one of those skill position spots.
All right. Well, the reason I asked, but let me get to another preliminary. What you guys hit on a little bit, who's winning between Manhertz and the 4th and 5th tight end? Who's winning? Because you guys said that was a very close battle. And I think, and I will also, since you're there, which one do they sometimes use with the 1? Because then it was my bold prediction. I could give it to you then, but
I think Stoll has been a better receiver than Manhertz has been. It's hard to tell with the blocking. I kind of need to see them in games to judge the tight end blocking stuff, to be totally honest with you, Brandon. I mean, if I had to guess, right now, Stoll, he didn't practice today, so he's kind of on the side right now, so you can take that however you want. I mean, it's a good question. I think if you're keeping a guy to block, I think I'm keeping Manhertz. If I'm keeping a guy that can do a little bit of both, I think I would keep Stoll.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Stoll has been slightly better as in the passing game as a receiver, but in terms of blocking, right now I'd give the slight edge to Manhertz.
He's just so big.
I was literally about to say, I don't think people realize just how big and thick Chris Manhertz is. He is massive, and he's built like a statue.
He's 6'6", 260. I mean, he's a monster.
Standing next to him, I was like, I did not realize how just built this guy is.
His name defines his physique quite well.
Yeah.
He will hurt some men.
But I think throughout the first, almost 2 weeks of practice, I believe both of them have had, at least a handful of reps with the starting offense. It hasn't been one guy primarily running with the 1s while the other one runs with the 2s. They've sort of both been mixed in.
All right. The reason I asked those questions is I thought, and just in my brain, that in total they'd probably keep 6. If you had 7, that makes my life a little easier with it, but I thought it was going to be 6 between the 2 positions. I just thought it was going to end up 4 running backs and 2 tight ends. And the reason for the running backs isn't for the position of running backs, it's for kickoff. So if you're going to need bodies. You get one injury on your kickoff, you're not going to want to take your starting running back or even your second string running back and put him back there.
No. Brandon, I'll be honest with you. They will not hesitate to put their second string player at any position as their kickoff returner. Yeah, they will not hesitate to do that for a second.
I think right now Tyrone Tracy has got to be one of the leading favorites to be the kick returner.
I think it's him, and we've seen Gunner back there, we've seen McKenzie back there as the smaller guys, and we've seen Turbo Miller back there too. So
so Turbo is the reason why I said there is a scenario where I could see 4 running backs, and it's the same point that Brand has made. If they keep Turbo, I think they want him as the kick returner in addition to running back depth / maybe used as sort of like a gadget type player.
So here's the thing about Turbo. Now, this all depends on whether or not he has a big preseason. Because a guy like that, he's probably going to play a full half of football at least, or at least a full quarter, or if not a full half in a lot of these preseason games. And if he shows off some of that breakaway speed and big playability we've seen during practice, it might be hard to sneak him onto the practice squad. But if he's quiet in these preseason games, he didn't do a ton today against Detroit. Let people pay more attention to joint practices. If he doesn't do a ton in these preseason games, maybe you can sneak him onto your practice squad.
Well, the question with Turbo Miller is actually this. Technically, he should have been in the same draft as Eric Gray. Who do you think they had rated higher? If they knew if they knew Turbo was coming out, because obviously it was a thing with his paperwork. So if they would have known, how quick they signed him, I'm going to guess that he was higher. So my bold prediction, I think Eric Gray is cut. And I don't think he's a bad player. When he got his shine a little bit last year, I thought he had good quickness. I thought he had decent vision, but he looked very small all the time. And so, like, the game that sticks out with him is the Niners game, and he was, like, non-existent, but really he was just getting destroyed. And then I just saw a clip from the day. I was calling today either way. And I saw a clip today. He looked small again. So I think he looks small. And my other bold prediction is Bellinger. For the almost the same way a running back can't get on the field if they can't block on third down, Bellinger, a couple of years ago, previous to that eye injury, we were writing him down as a kind of jack of all trades. He could block, he could catch, he could do whatever. But after that eye injury, his hands haven't been that sure. And then games like San Francisco and Seattle are games that when I hear Daniel Bellinger, I now think of a dude sitting in his stance with his head going left and right while people run by him on the left and right, blocking nobody. Then I see clips. And then it's like, oh, of course the clip is meant, the way they post on Twitter, is meant to be an attack on Daniel Jones. It's like, oh, Bellinger, we just not going to block nobody still. And then you start getting clips of drop balls, and it's like, ooh, you're just not playing well. And now that's 2 years of not playing well. And you have, so if I think he's a better blocker, just his tape on film in Penn State last year. I just think he's a better blocker. So if he can be a receiving tight end in any type of aspect, I think he's already a better blocker. And then I think that with Dable's praise of Cager, that kind of tells you who your real receiving tight end is. So what is Bellinger's role at that point? And then if Manhurst is him, which is what I was asking, if Manhurst is him out there blocking, that's the one you really want, because Bellinger's just head on the swivel, which way did they go? So that's not going to work out. And I think although he's a fourth-round pick only a handful of years in a Joe Shane team, I think he's cut either way.
All right, Brendan. Appreciate the call, man. So put that down in the bold predictions there. You got no Gray and no Bellinger on the roster from Brandon there for the bold prediction. We'll wrap it up with Steve in Atlanta wants to talk about Hard Knocks. Steve, what's up?
Hey, John. Yeah, I'm just calling because I wanted to respond to Hugo. We did not reach in this draft whatsoever. I really follow and do the draft board a lot on that one.
Yep.
And on my value board, it was very interesting. That's what I looked at, is what Joe Shane had and what my value board. They were pretty close. And when I look at Joe Shane, I think his first draft was his worst, and I gave him really a C at that point. He went up last year more than a B, and I think this year he was an A.
Now, Steve, and the thing is, first draft, you didn't have a problem with the first two picks. It was the picks later on that where you thought it didn't match up with the generic, right?
No, Evan Neal was one of the ones that I was worried about because he never tested.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. But in terms of his average draft position based on where the experts had him going, he was right in line with where they were.
From a reach standpoint, he didn't do anything.
Right.
And this year, he was even better this year on the reach. The normal thing with the reach, he hardly had a reach at all. He had them all in the right positions. And basically what he did is everyone looks at need, but you're looking at a cluster. What is there at that time? And where the problem is if you do reach for a need, and like you were giving the example of that earlier, that was correct. I mean, you could have made a case for getting a cornerback and not get Newman and then look at another safety. But I think that I think Newman was the better pick overall with regards with safeties and cornerbacks where they were picking at that time. So I think he knocked it out of the park this year. I mean, I have no complaints whatsoever on what he did this year. He showed it, and I think that's what the fascinating thing about Hard Knocks is they really did show the process, and they showed how they looked at it, and they evaluated things. And I think he comes out pretty well, and I think our picks have really come out well. I'm quite happy with what we've done, and I didn't see any reach whatsoever.
All right, Steve. Appreciate the call. Matt, any
Thanks,
comment
Steve.
on that one?
I mean, I have to look over at you because you make fun of me sometimes about how high I have been about this rookie class.
That's why I'm giving you a chance to rave.
Look, it's August 5th. It's August 5th.
And make fun of Strong. I tease you.
Yes,
I tease. Yes.
It is August 5th today. We are still over a month away from week 1.
3 All-Pros.
So I am not ready to make any, huge declarations about the rookie class. I've expressed my love. I don't know if love is the right word.
Oh,
but
I think the way you talk about it, I think love is exactly the correct word.
I would say Malik Neighbors has already shown me enough for me to say that he was certainly the right pick and the best player at that point of the draft. Some of the other guys, they've certainly had flashes, especially, Theo Johnson, Tyrone Tracy. I would say the 2 day 2 picks, it's been a little bit of a slower start. Newman obviously had the injury that kept him out of practice for, was it like a full week or so?
Yeah.
But we've started to see him, make some plays, and the same goes for Drew Phillips. He hasn't been hurt, but I feel like especially the last couple of practices, he's really started to get more reps with the first team defense going up against Giant starters, and today going up against the Lions first team offense, and he's really held his own. And we talk all the time, rookie cornerbacks, it's not the easiest position to come in on day one and all of a sudden be a great player. We've seen some guys do it in recent years, but for a lot of players around the league, that's a position that takes a little bit of time. And he's had some reps already where I have confidence that with some growth and development, he could turn into a very solid slot cornerback. So, yeah, overall, I'm sticking with my admiration for this rookie class. I think the ceiling of what this rookie class could end up being a couple of years down the road is the highest of any of the draft classes the Giants have had since Joe Shane became general manager.
I'll rapid fire it. Neighbors has met every expectation. He's looked exactly what I thought he was going to be. New injuries out. And frankly, I need to see safeties in games. Practice. I need to see safeties in games, and he hasn't been on the field a ton either. So, got to see more. But in terms of the cerebral stuff that I've talked to people about, apparently he's met all expectations. Andrew Phillips, instincts, physicality, feistiness around the line of scrimmage has been great. I would like to see him, cover guys down the field in the slot in game situations. Where I'm really isolating and watching him how he covers guys. I think that's the next test, at least for me watching him. Though you really haven't seen him give up a lot of big plays in practice this offseason, which has been great. Tyrone Tracy has blown me away with how quickly he's taken, I think, to some of the nuances of the running back position. I think he's done a great job with that. Theo Johnson, my worry with him and why I maybe had him ranked a little bit lower than the Giants did, quite frankly, is on tape. I just didn't see the athleticism in games match the athleticism in testing. But now that I've seen him up close, I see that far more clearly in person watching him at practice. So I feel better about that than when they drafted him. And Musa was the only guy that didn't bring up. Did I hit everybody else? Or did I forget
you hit
someone
everyone else.
Yeah, and then again, linebackers like safeties for me. I need to see him in games like running backs. And I need to see Tracy in a game as well as a running back. But yeah, I think the early returns are good, and most importantly, got to keep these guys healthy. The minute rookies and young players start missing games and missing time in practice, that's when you have trouble. So keep them on the field, keep them healthy. I think this rookie class, I'm with Matt. I think it's going to turn out to be a lot of fun and help the Giants for a long time moving forward.
We haven't spoken much about Muasau, just
Yeah.
overall, just real quick. He did have a nice play today. He had a pass breakup
He
that
did.
he almost came down with an interception on. So
And he's athletic. He's quick. He was in the backfield on a play, too. I think he might have missed the tackle on when he penetrated on that one particular run play, but he was in the backfield, which was good to see. You want to check out the Giants rookie class? Go to Giants TV, the Giants official connected TV streaming app. It brings original video content, game highlights on demand, and direct to Big Blue fans. It's free, Giants TV, again, on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. For Matthew Citak, I'm John Schmeelk. I actually looked this up today. Tomorrow it is Dottino and Casillas. I guess we should text them ahead of time, Pierce. Actually, no, wait. Tomorrow wasn't it Casillas last week? Cross was Friday. Cross was Friday. Yeah, so it is Dottino Casillas tomorrow. And then I'm back on Wednesday with somebody. It might be you. I don't know. It's somebody on Wednesday. Maybe Dottino. We'll find out.
I don't know.
But check it out. 1 o'clock every day this weekend. We will have a show on game day on Thursday at 1 o'clock as well. So
I'm on Thursday. That
perfect.
reminds me.
So make sure you go check that out. Big Blue Kickoff Live throughout the week. I think I put you and Dottino on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So check that out throughout the week, everybody. Giants.com, the Giants mobile app. Giants.com/podcast. It's all brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. One more day of competitive practices against the Lions tomorrow. Hopefully weather cooperates, and we'll have a whole lot more coverage of everything that happened on practice on Giants.com, the Giants app. Video content, audio content, written content. Check it all out. We'll have everything for you as we continue through training camp. Giants and Lions, one more practice tomorrow before the first preseason game on Thursday night.
Overwhelmed by mess in your pickup bed? Upgrade with the decked drawer system. It's completely redesigned. Accommodate more gear in larger drawers. Extend effortlessly and keep your equipment clean and dry. Secure your loads with integrated D-ring tie-downs. Optimize your truck bed space. Proudly made in the USA. Lockable and compatible with any truck from the past 20 plus years. Simple online ordering and easy installation. Visit decked.com/iHeart for free shipping. Get decked. Truck bed storage, toolboxes, and accessories.
Hey, have you ever used Cheapo Air?
For years, and I really like it. With Cheapo Air, you can book online, use their app, or even over the phone. They've got great prices on over 500 airlines and millions of accommodations. They're my go-to for travel planning. And if you join their Club Miles program, you can earn points to save on the cost of your travel. Book on the app, and you get double points.
Sounds like it's time I tried Cheapo Air.
Call Cheapo Air at 855-247-3279 or visit cheapoair.com/podcast.